And you've been in the courtroom almost every day, right,
Right.
Maureen? What has been the most striking thing that you've witnessed or noticed or concluded?
Well, that Michael Jackson lives in a celebrity cocoon. If it weren't for his fame, if it weren't for his wealth, he certainly would never have been allowed to get away with half the stuff he's gotten away with. The jury has heard that he was drunk at least 4 times a week the 2 months that the boy and his brother were living at Neverland. He has a drug problem that's mentioned in a lot of different court papers.
What kind of drug problem?
Prescription drugs, probably Demerol and morphine. And I talked to somebody, a medical worker, who had treated him, and he goes around with a big black suitcase filled with syringes and IV poles and everything. I mean, this is a person who has all these people around him who participate in whatever his deviances are.
In fact, you believe that he's sort of surrounded by enablers, and there's nobody there who really has his best interests at heart, because they're all wanting something from
exactly.
him.
It's the golden goose. No matter how much it's already been picked over, they want a part of it.
And it's been picked over a lot, right?
Yes, even his own mother, I report, after appearing on the rebuttal video after the Martin Bashir documentary that started this whole thing off, asked for $250,000 from him, according to some court papers.
Before we go, let me ask you about the alleged victims, because and actually victims, I guess,
right?
plural.
There are a lot of them.
But the major one, the accuser. Yes. Certainly, his family's reputation has been taken to task. Do you think he is completely legitimate, or are there too many holes in his story?
Well, the defense has done a very good job of making his mother the defendant, but she had nothing to do with the molestation. And it's interesting that on Friday, the jury was able to see this videotape of how he really confessed in the beginning to this detective, and he didn't want to tell what had happened to him, and he said at the end, "Please don't tell my mother," which kind of shoots complete holes through the defense theory that it was all a big setup, that she coached him for money.
You must be looking forward to the day when this is all over.
Yes, I can't wait.
All right, well, Maureen Orth, thanks so much for coming in, Maureen, and people can read the complete article, obviously, in the June issue.
July issue,
rather.
Coming out next week.
You guys are so ahead of the game. July issue of Vanity Fair. Thanks, Maureen.
2005. I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. Tonight, a tale of 2 trials. In one courtroom, a man known to me. Just across the way, a man known only to family and friends.
Just because we don't have money, our lives do matter to somebody, maybe not to the public's eyes, but to your family.
Oh, yes.
2 prosecutors for the alleged murderer, 5 for the pop star.
Michael Jackson, to me, really represents the entire trajectory from fame to infamy, and I don't think in this country we make much of a distinction anymore between the two.
Tonight, fame and misfortune, the celebrity trial phenomenon. It's not that the world was unfamiliar with hype before Hollywood developed it into an international industry. Ancient press agentry gave us Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, Attila the Hun, and then, in more recent years, Ivan the Terrible and Rasputin. Not necessarily nice people, but each, in his or her own way, gave their flack something of substance to work with. Just what, on the other hand, has attracted an estimated 1,200 journalists from 32 countries to a courthouse in Santa Maria, California, is a little less clear. It is understood that Michael Jackson was at one time one of the superstars, perhaps the superstar of popular music, but he hasn't been that for a long time. What he has been for many years is a clearly troubled man whose public behavior is bizarre and some of whose private activities may have been criminal. A jury in Santa Maria continues to pick through the evidence and testimony on that question. The E! Cable network has been airing nightly reenactments of the Jackson trial, a program that is rushed out to some 34 countries on a nightly basis, as though global interests hung in the balance. Interestingly, though, the trial has not received the obsessive attention that attended O.J. Simpson's murder trial. We are, it seems, more squeamish about charges of child molestation than we are about a double homicide. In some ways, we may come to discover that this trial is something of a Rorschach test, revealing more about us than it does about its central character. For one thing, it's clearly not the gravity of the crime that determines the level of attention. As Jim Avila reports, there is another trial underway in the same courthouse complex, a triple murder trial that is getting almost no attention at all.
This is how Michael Jackson got to court every day, a police escort through the streets of Santa Maria. As many as 34 officers assigned to get him from the freeway to the courtroom. Jackson was greeted by more than 100 fans during closing arguments and more than 1,000 accredited journalists. The Sheriff's Department has 40 deputies assigned to provide security on verdict day. And so far, the county's bill for Jackson arrangements is more than $2 million. The district attorney and sheriff will not provide the cost of the investigation itself.
There are about 1,200 journalists right now from 32 countries, all of whom are desperately seeking some crumb, some little piece of information, something that they can update on the sea of satellite dishes that are behind me.
100 yards away in the same court complex is the site of Santa Maria's worst murder case in 25 years. Listen to the eerie silence that surrounds this trial. A vicious murder with its single mother, 2-year-old daughter, and unborn child victims. This is how the defendant in this triple murder gets to court. James Noriega is in the jailhouse bus, and instead of a gauntlet of reporters, there is a single local newspaper journalist assigned daily, and no one from the Nationals.
It's a case about evil itself.
Despite the seriousness of the charge, during last week's closing arguments, even the local paper wrote 11 articles about Jackson and only 3 about Noriega. 7,000 words about alleged celebrity child molestation, 2,000 about triple murder. The Santa Maria Times executive editor, Tom Bolton, says while he is determined to give full coverage to the local murder, there is reader pressure to provide more Jackson coverage.
When you look at our sales of newspapers, in particular our sales on the news racks, which is where you tend to see the fluctuation, the days that Michael Jackson is on the front page, we sell more newspapers.
Michael Jackson. On the national front, Court TV says its ratings are up 30% during the Jackson trial coverage, and they have reacted with more daytime Jackson programming, despite no cameras in the courtroom.
I think there's kind of a love-hate thing going on with the Michael Jackson trial. People will tell you, oh, I'm sick of it, I'll be so glad when it's over. Oh, by the way, what's happening today? How did it go?
But it's more than just a superficial difference in how this case is being covered by the media. There is a substantial difference in the way these cases are being prosecuted.
It starts at the respective crime scenes. Neverland, 2,700 acres of rolling hills, a celebrity estate, and the Stark Transient Motel where 21-year-old Kathleen Martinez lived and was so brutally murdered in the bathtub of room 10. Suresh Patel manages the Palm.
One is the celebrity people and one is the ordinary people. But people is the people. We have to think about both people.
The Jackson prosecution team has 5 DAs assigned, including the boss, District Attorney Tom Sneddon, who averages fewer than 2 trials a year, and 3 full-time sheriff's investigators. The Noriega team, 2 district attorneys, and 1 investigator. On the defense sides of the table, a similar disparity. 3 expensive defense attorneys paid for by Mr. Jackson. 2 publicly paid defenders for Mr. Noriega. Private investigator Jesus Castillo has worked in the Santa Maria courts for 14 years and is on the defense teams of both the Noriega trial and the Jackson trial today.
Well, it's like night and day. I mean, there's an overwhelming presence. When 74 officers arrived at Neverland, it was unprecedented in this county. And they had 15 people working on a crime scene that involved 3 dead people. An 8-month pregnant lady and a 2-year-old.
It's an emotional comparison for the family of James Noriega, who contend he was the easy arrest, fearing other suspects were not pursued. Noriega's family is disturbed about what they feel is being ignored, surrounded by public and press fixated with Michael Jackson's day-to-day health and seemingly uninterested in the capital case next door.
Just because he doesn't have money doesn't mean that that people don't care about him, you know what I mean? That he's somebody in somebody's world. And one of his family members, we love him, just like everybody else loves Michael Jackson. We just don't have as much money as Jackson does.
I think Michael Jackson's tale has gotten probably a little less coverage than 9/11.
But USC's Marty Kaplan says there is good reason for that attention.
it has gotten the attention it has because it is fascinating. It's endlessly lurid. It has all the elements of softcore pornography and none of the shame for paying attention to it.
The world is watching, and for the prosecutors who paid special attention to this otherwise, unfortunately routine child molestation case, and the journalists who grumble about covering it, the stakes are so high, the murder next door is in the shadows. For Nightline, Jim Avila, ABC News, Santa Maria.
Who better to talk to us about the international obsession with the Michael Jackson trial than Maureen Orth, special correspondent for Vanity Fair. She's been covering Michael Jackson for 12 years. Her latest investigative piece on the trial is in the magazine's July edition. Steve Cause, the former editor-in-chief of the National Enquirer, who led the newspaper in its award-winning coverage of the O.J. Simpson trial, and ABC's own Cynthia McFadden, senior legal correspondent and one of the country's best, who's been covering the Jackson trial. Maureen, 12 years. What did you do to offend someone to be assigned to 12 years of covering Michael Jackson?
I've often asked that question of myself, but it actually got me to write a book called The Importance of Being Famous Behind the Scenes of the Celebrity Industrial Complex, and that's what we're seeing out in Santa Maria right now, the Celebrity Industrial Complex in all of its full force and glory.
At some point or another, and Maureen, just keep going for a minute, at some point or another, wouldn't you think that people would say, look, this is a very, very troubled man, and whatever the legitimacy of the trial, and I'm not saying it should happen in anonymity or without any notice whatsoever, it's really not worth the kind of attention that it's getting.
Well, I think what's happened is that really we have become hooked in this country on celebrity reality soap operas. We live in this wired world, and now that we have cable, all these cable television networks and blogs, etc., that have to be fed 24/7, trials like these are easy for the media to cover, and so they generate a lot of the interest just as much. And I think really the sad part is that someone like Michael Jackson, if he weren't a huge international celebrity and as rich and as famous as he was, would probably be by now locked up or under serious psychological treatment. But he's neither, because he has the fame and the wealth to shield himself.
For all the attention, Steve Cause, that this trial has received, it's still not quite up to the level that attended the O.J. Simpson trial, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on why.
Yeah, the O.J. Simpson trial was a clean crime. In this particular case, we don't have a clean crime, we have a very queasy crime. This is child molestation. It's something that the media can't focus on, can't grab and hold and really dig down into. But replacing that aspect of it is Michael Jackson's bizarreness. So what the media has done in this particular case is gone to Michael's bizarreness. They're showing us the pictures of him walking with his slippers on, his pajamas, dancing on an SUV. So the gravity of the crime is replaced by the bizarreness of the celebrity, which is fueling the public interest right now.
Cynthia, you have been covering the trial.
In fact, I haven't been out in the courtroom at all, Ted. We have Jim Avila out doing that on a daily basis. I have followed the trial closely. But, you know, just a reality check on the numbers. We called Andrew Tyndall, who, as you know, studies these kinds of things, about how much the networks do in terms of coverage. The coverage of O.J. Simpson was 15 times what it is, at least on the network nightly newscasts, of what the Jackson trial is. So it isn't just slightly less, it's massively less. In fact, in the 5 months that the Jackson trial has been going on, you'll be interested to know that the 3 networks combined only covered this trial for 44 minutes, which is less than 1% of the news whole. So, you know, at least on network nightly news, it's certainly in proportion. It was the 16th most covered story in the last 5 months. The most covered story was Iraq, second was the Pope, and it goes down from there.
I understand there's what is normally a pretty boring and not heavily attended event, jury selection. I guess at least 100 members of the media from all around the world. 1,000 applications have been received from all around the world for media that wants to cover the trial itself. What's the scene like there outside the courtroom?
Well, you know, if you said 100, it really is 1,000. We stood on line yesterday, Chris, for 2.5 hours, and we were not the first in line by a long shot to get our credentials, and there were a couple hundred beyond us. I think 1,200, 1,300 people applied for credentials, many of them multiple credentials for news organizations like NBC, which must have 30-plus people over here right now. But an enormous international press corps here right now, because Michael Jackson was certainly an international, and remains to some degree, an international star and presence and figure. A historical figure in the music industry. So there's great interest overseas. Unlike some other of the mega trials that have been covered in this state, the press interest is certainly international in scope.